and thanks for joining us. I'm Jamie.
And I'm Carly.
Welcome to SVU Sister Sundays, where every Sunday we sit down and we talk about Law & Order SVU episodes.
And compare them to the real-life cases that inspired the writers of the show.
This week, we will be talking about Season 1, Episode 7, which is the case of Nathaniel Leopold and Richard
Loeb.
Also, Loeb. L-O-E-B.
Richard.
Don't know.
L-O-E-B.
Richard. I don't even know what to say to that.
That's his name.
And Gary Paluche. This is
Paluche.
2 cases for this one episode.
Fucking bubble
The
pop.
case. Poor Ryan Davies is found murdered in the park. He is naked from the waist down. He has unusual bruising on his neck. So Munch and Cassidy question some of the kids at school, and they find out that 2 older boys, Mikey D and Jimmy G, would bully him at school. So of course, they want to go question him. They vaguely talk to him, but they were able to get from him that they saw this guy Turbot riding his bike in the area on the day of the attack, and this guy is a pet. Apparently they'd heard all about this guy and they were so concerned. So
He was creepily writing his
very
bicycle.
creepy. So of course, Olivia and Elliot decide to go talk to Mr. Turbot. It turns out he is a predator. Before they leave, they take a soil sample from Turbot's yard just to test it on the soil found on Ryan's body. Apparently there's some foreign soil on his body as well. They want to speak with his original victim to find out if there's a pattern. Well, apparently Mr. Turbot had a psychotic break during the attack of attacking his original victim that got put on the registry. Apparently the neighbors heard him screaming because he thought that he had killed the boy and the boy's corpse was coming and attacking him.
Turbot screaming, not the kid.
Yes, so the neighbors called the cops.
He was attacking the boy.
But he was definitely attacking the boy. He was taking
hallucinogenic.
and the boy was door to door selling, I believe, cookies.
And he knocks on the door.
Yeah.
This guy's tripping, and he attacks
And
him, and he's on the
attacks
registry for life. Super attacked.
Yes.
It's graphic.
And we're not going to get into it because we don't want to be spoilers.
And he's
so
not even really
there's
a
some
part of
things.
this story.
Exactly. And there's some things that we intentionally keep out because we don't want to be spoilers of the episodes.
Yeah.
So,
All the way spoilers.
there's some things we can spoil, but we leave some things out. Stabler goes back to check out Turbot's alibi. He claims he was at a bar the night of the attack. He's like, I couldn't have done it. I was at the bar. So Stabler goes and he checks it out. He talks to the bartender, and the bartender's like, yeah, he was in here, but he left.
For like 2 hours. And
Yeah.
then came back.
All distraught and stuff. Apparently he looked so distraught when he came back. So Stabler's like, oh really? We're gonna go arrest this guy. So they go and they arrest Turbot. Well, Turbot's like, I'm totally innocent, dude. I don't know why you're doing this to me. And they're like, no, we're totally doing this to you. So they also realize that Turbot's bike chain matches the marks around Ryan's neck.
He was looking super good for this.
He really was.
But as they go up to the house to arrest him, and there's an angry mob of people outside when they go to arrest him because they didn't know that there was a they're all screaming, take him to jail, he's doing this to our kids.
Mhm.
The bartender who said that Turbot was at the bar and then left the bar came up to Stabler's car while they're arresting him and said, actually, I lied. He was at the bar the whole day. So they're like
Yep.
arresting him because he looks super good for this. But then like right before they get him in, the dude says that.
And he knew what Turbot did before, and he's like, I
Yeah.
knew he was going to do it again eventually anyway,
Yeah.
so, everybody's safer with him behind bars no matter if it was him or not,
Everybody had
basically,
bad
yeah.
thoughts about this Turbot guy.
So, of course, they go and tell the DA, and DA calls the, Captain Cragen in there, and, there's this whole big thing about if Turbot's going to stay in jail or not, but eventually they wind up letting Turbot go. And while he's walking down the steps of the courthouse, Ryan's father comes out of the crowd and shoots him at point blank range, and Vigilante kills him right there on the courthouse steps.
But the reason they let him out was because there were like 2 DNA samples under the kid's fingers, and it's taken forever to run that sample and the one on the bike chain. And when it all comes back while the guy's in interrogation, it's not his DNA under the kid's fingers, and it's not the kid's DNA on his bike chain. So that's when they let him go. And the father of the dead kid,
yes,
meets him at the court steps and shoots him.
Shoots him at
Everybody
point
thought
blank
this guy
range.
was guilty, and he freaking wasn't. The poor guy was just trying to live his life.
Oh yeah, Mikey D and Jimmy G or whatever. They're like, you know what, we're gonna help out. So they go down to the station house and they're like, you know, this is what we saw. We saw him over here. So, you know, they go and they check out the area, and he wore glasses and that they were missing.
And she wanted him
And
back.
yeah, and that they were special. And so they went and searched the area that Mikey D and Jimmy G had described, and they had found Ryan's glasses. Well, they had a nice big old fingerprint on him, and lo and behold, guess who it belongs to? Jimmy G!
Same time, the DNA comes back under the kid's fingernails, and it's Mikey P, or whatever the F his name is.
Mikey D.
Mikey D.
You
Jimmy
know it.
P, G,
I
C,
can't keep them straight.
C,
A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
Z, P, P.
You know, they press the boys harder to try to get him to confess, which they do. They wind up confessing to the murders. They said that Jimmy had found Turbot online and had become obsessed with them, and because they had bullied Ryan in school, he had also seen Ryan, and he started picking on him, and it just started making Jimmy go crazy. And apparently once they somehow lured him out to this area in the park, and they were just kind of fooling around with him, knocking him around, and when his glasses fell off on the ground, he really freaked out, and they tried to, quote, keep him quiet by and then to really keep him quiet, they used the bike chain and they squeezed it tighter and tighter until what they say they eventually heard his neck, quote, snap. But at the very end, the boys go, well, he, quote, he was a loser anyway, so who cares? And just shrugs. And that's the end of the episode. And
Dick Wolf.
Dick Wolf. What an because he was a loser anyway. Really? Really? Because he... The case of Nathaniel Leopold and Richard Loeb.
L-O-E-B.
We're just going to call him Richard.
We're having some trouble with that last
We're
name.
just going to call him Richard. The two were wealthy students at the University of Chicago in 1924. They were charged with the murder of Bobby Franks, a 14-year-old boy also from the Chicago area whose father was a wealthy watch manufacturer. Leopold, 19, and Richard, 18, spent 7 months planning the, quote, perfect crime to kidnap and murder an adolescent. So the two drove around looking for the, quote, perfect victim for their, quote, perfect crime. And they selected poor little Bobby Franks, little 14-year-old Bobby. They also selected the, quote, perfect weapon, which was a chisel.
Oh.
A chisel.
People are brilliant, you know.
So, the day that they had planned to execute their plan, they went and bought the chisel. Leopold went and rented a car under the name Martin D. Ballard. And he used the car to pick up Franks on his way home from school. Initially, Franks refused the ride, like a smart boy, but
Stranger danger.
the smooth-talking, smart guy Leopold is, he was able to talk him into getting into the car. So poor Bobby Franks gets into the car, where Richard is waiting in the back with the chisel.
Surprise.
Richard springs out from the back, starts Bobby in the neck and in the head, drags him in the back of the car, and then puts a gag in his mouth and a bag over his head, and there he lies on the floorboard until he dies. They then drive to their pre-designated dump site 25 miles away in Wolf Lake, Indiana.
Perfect crime here.
They go into the town of Wolf Lake for a little while, hang out till it's nighttime. They go back to where they dumped Bobby's body, and they remove his clothes, burn his clothes, move his body so it's not easily seen, and they pour hydrochloric acid all over his face and his he had a and in 1924, it was rare to have a they were afraid he would be able to be identified by his
Overkill there.
It's man. While they're hanging out in town, they figure, hey, we're gonna try to throw him off and call his mom and try to offer, a ransom. Because guess what? Richard and Bobby are second cousins, and they live right across the street from each other and frequently play tennis together. Richard knows his mother's phone number by heart and calls her under the name George Johnson and tries to demand a ransom. Creates this elaborate cockaboo scheme to get her to this certain place that she can't find. And while she's looking for this place, they wind up finding Bobby's body. By the time they got back to Chicago, he had already been found. Richard had a special pair of glasses that had a special hinge on them that there were only 3 made in the entire city of Chicago at that time. And one of those pairs belonged to Richard.
Yes.
Both the men wound up confessing to the murder. They were both sentenced life in prison plus 99 years apiece.
Yeah, that was a brutal
So, yeah, that was way overboard. And then the second case, this one's pretty bad, but not that bad. His name is Gary Paluche, and he was an American man known for the vigilante killing of Jeff Dossett, who had kidnapped and assaulted his son. His son's name was, he survived his attack, Jody Paluche. He was a karate student, and Dossett was the karate instructor, and apparently Dossett had been abusing Jody for about a year prior to the kidnapping. February of 1984, Dossett abducted Jody from Louisiana and brought him all the way out to California to a motel where he continued to Dossett stupidly allowed Jody to call his mother. I guess he had a soft spot for him, and he really missed his mom. I mean, of course, you're far away with an abductor, So he called his mom, and his mom called the cops, and the cops raided the motel that they were at, saved Jody, and arrested Jeff Dossett. And I guess somehow Jody's father, Gary, heard where Dossett was landing from when they flew him in from California to Louisiana. He had just kind of mixed in with the crowd, just wearing a baseball cap so he couldn't be recognized, and some sunglasses or whatever, just a generic disguise, I guess, if you will, and waited until he walked by and shot him at point blank range. But he wound up living for a little while. I think it was like a couple weeks. He wound up living. He was in a coma, but he eventually died of his wounds. But Gary Paluche didn't serve one day, not one single day in prison. He received 5 years of probation and 300 hours of community service. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention, he shot him at point blank range on live TV. At first, they thought it was a police officer who tipped him off because he was good friends with multiple police officers at the time from dealing with the kidnapping of his son. So he was in constant contact with authorities. So originally they thought it was police who had leaked that information, but later they found out that it was one of those people from that news station that actually broadcasted the shooting on TV.
The comparison.
The glasses at the crime scene, they were able to identify the real perpetrator from the glasses at the scene. However, in real life, they belong to the perpetrator, but in the series, they belong to the victim.
The mom in the show calls them special glasses too.
Yes.
She says that they are special. He can't see without them, and she wants them back, but the glasses were of a special prescription in the real life case. That's how they caught him.
Yes. It was also speculated that in the show, Ryan was killed elsewhere and brought to his dump site, which also coincides with the real life case. They killed Bobby Franks in the car, and they drove him out to a different location and then placed his body there.
In the series, the 2 killers do all the research on the guy that they're going to frame for this crime, and in real life, the other guys plan to a T. We got to get a rental car, we got to get an ice pick, we got to do it over here, let's kill someone in a rental
big elaborate
car. I still can't
plan.
get over that.
Yeah.
But they did their research.
They were both teenagers who killed the victim.
A younger boy.
Yeah.
Younger
two
teenage boy.
2 younger teens. Instead of actual adults or something, instead of full grown men.
doing
This is
that.
Paul. Everyone say hi. The kid was reluctant to go with the perpetrators in both the real life story and in the series. And then, of course, the father being the vigilante shooter. However, in real life, he actually got it right, and he
shot
got the right guy. But in the series, unfortunately, he didn't get the right guy. He got the wrong guy. I really like this one. It's a mix between two separate cases. For the inspiration of the show on this one, I really like ones like this. The entire story, the entire episode is based off of these two cases mixed into one, and it's actually really cool. So if you guys, have time, I highly suggest you check it out.
Yeah.
But I think that about wraps it up. And again, I'm Jamie.
I'm Carlin.
And we are the
SVU
Sisters. We'll see you next Sunday.
Bye.
Bye.
No, don't.